as an ex-official declaring horror, 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 and horror. Well, it's this memorandum, actually, May 19th of 2023, goes out to United States Customs and Border Protection, end of contract for DNA testing for suspected family unit fraud. Do you know what that's all about? If you don't, I'm about to tell you. I don't know how anybody with any conscience could do this whatsoever. It's a bigger story than I think most will cover, because it really goes to paint the administration in a very bad light, and Biden in particular. And that's what we will cover for you today. Before we do, put up many, many broadcasts today, all about the conspiracy of the Senate satellite phones, and then we moved over to Disease X over at Restricted Republic. Wanted to give you a background of what Tedros is now saying is a very real possibility. And I put it against history of what Fauci has said in the past, and it will be very eye-opening. If you haven't been to Restricted Republic yet, again, very special offer. Real Journalism. Put that in monthly discount code to get $3.99 for 2 years, plus 14 days for free. This Thursday, Lisa and I are going to sit down with our audience. Hopefully you're part of it. 6:30 p.m. Pacific time, and we do our live broadcast, live chat. Every question asked to us, you can see on your screen. It's the way we like it. We don't have to hide anything at Restricted Republic. That's why it is such a powerful platform. Again, Real Journalism monthly checkout. Get there today. And if you need a laugh, and remember, $3.99 a month for 2 years, plus 14 days for free. And if you want something a little bit more lighthearted, make sure you join us over at we'reforkedup.com. Lisa and I escaping this reality, getting into our own marital reality and enjoying each other, and then sharing that with you. Give you a laugh, give you a smile, show you some amazing restaurants, some amazing food. It's one of my passions. Always has been, always will be. And we want you there with us. You won't believe some of the things that come out of Lisa's mouth. And that is what's making it so popular. We'reforkedup.com. Get there today. I'll put a link above also. But now, back to this story about this notification that came out. End of contract for DNA testing for suspected family unit fraud. The U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP. DNA contract with Bodhi Technology will end on May 31st, 2023, and all family DNA testing will conclude on that date. What is the implications of that decision, and why is it so darn evil in our opinion? Well, here's when it began. U.S. to begin DNA samples from immigrants who entered the country illegally. This on NBC News. The DNA material will be sent directly to the FBI to store in the Combined DNA Index System, known as CODIS. An administration official says there's many problems with CODIS, but there was one big highlight of this entire program, because it was designed to stop something more formidable than this article lets on initially. But again, it was implemented by Trump, so we wouldn't have expected the highlights of it to be covered. It was to log criminal activity, and it was to stop something of the utmost importance. It involves children. Border Patrol picks up 834 migrant children illegally sent across the border in one day, a record states. 834 migrant children. Now, were they with their parents would be a question. Well, there's statistics behind that. In an effort to speed up releases, however, the Biden administration lowered the standard for selecting adult sponsors, lowered the standard for picking adult sponsors so it can release more children from Border Patrol and keep up with the flow of children arriving. It's a lot of focus on something I'm not really comfortable with, because I want children in good families. And if you allow people in Mexico to believe that they could simply, at mass, send children across the border, whose loving arms are they falling into? Who's protecting them? Who's watching over them? Who's taking care of them? Should be a number one concern. For example, adults who claim children are no longer fingerprinted, which the Trump administration had required. Adults who claim children are no longer fingerprinted. They used to be under the Trump administration. If you claimed a child, you had to be fingerprinted to assure it was your child. What a novel thought. So what would the reason to get rid of that be? Why would anybody in their right mind get rid of that? Well, Biden's getting rid of it. Again, in my opinion, just pure evil. You can't do that to a child. Unaccompanied children daily report. Children in HHS care, 14,523. This was back in 2021. 14,523. Biden announced early on the DHS would no longer immediately turn away children, as had been the policy since Trump imposed a public health measure in March 2020. He didn't want children sitting in then what was believed to be COVID-infested border patrol facilities. So he tried to turn them away to make sure they didn't fill it up. And when you read testimony of one child, I'm going to put a link. Again, all my links are at Restricted Republic or at justtosaynight.com. I want you to read it. It will tear your heart right out of your chest. The record for most unaccompanied migrant children crossing the border in one day was just smashed under the Biden administration. Preliminary government data indicates the U.S. will exceed the 19,000 mark for single children taken into custody in July. 19,000 in 1 month. Surpassing the March record, that number does not include children who show up at the border with a family member. That's 19,000 who show up without a family member. Redacted version of document proposed to be filed under seal. A declaration made by a child 13 years old from Honduras to claims that she made in here. No child should ever make. How she got across. How she was locked into what she called a freezer. A tent so cold that all the children there called it a freezer. Limited showers, limited space, limited arms to fall into to help. The food here is horrible. Yesterday we were given hamburgers, but I couldn't eat it because there was a foul odor coming from the bread. The salad was soggy and covered in condiments. I couldn't eat that either. The rice is very hard. Many times I have been given chicken that was bloody and raw. I remember that one meal my friend was given chicken that still had feathers in it, and she had to pull out the feathers. I really only eat popsicles and juice because that is the only food I can trust. Not heartbreaking, but let's find a way to assure that more children or those using those children to get into the country have no means of deterrence so more come in. Biden's policy that will dramatically spike human trafficking because there'll be nothing in place to assure that that child belongs with that parent. In 2019, acting Homeland Security, Kevin McClellan, told the Senate Judiciary Committee that based on initial results of one pilot program, 15% of illegal migrant families are committing fraud by claiming unrelated children as their own. Washington Post retorted on that and said it was 30%. At the time, he said illegal immigrants and smugglers believe a child is a passport to migration in the U.S. Back then, Biden reinforcing that now. DHS chief reveals large percentage of asylum seekers disappear, skip court hearings. He said migrants and smugglers believe a child is a passport to migration in the United States. As such, what he called child recycling rings exist, including one in which the same 8 children were used to help bring in 36 adults. Same 8 children, just keep going back and forth so they could bring in more adults with them, because if there's no method in place to assure that that is that person's child, how are you going to stop it? Or you don't want to stop it. He also cited a case of a 50-year-old man who was paid $80 to rent a 6-month-old child so he could avoid deportation by appearing to be a family. 30% of children brought across the border are trafficked by people with zero relation to them. I'll leave the last words out because it's despicable. It's despicable. The only way to ensure these kids are actually with family members is to DNA test them. President Trump enacted testing to save lives and keep children from living a human nightmare. The Biden regime just announced that they will end this policy, effectively handing children over to the worst people imaginable. This was published by Kari Lake. It is cruel. It is unconscionable, but it is being done. DNA tests reveal 30% of suspected fraudulent migrant families were unrelated. And we just gave them pathway right into the country. People were told, however, when the test was happening, that they were going to go through the machine were just breaking as they were waiting to get their swab. It was, oh yeah, this isn't my daughter. It's my niece. It's my cousin. Because it scared them into compliance and not lying. And that resistance saved a lot of lives and stopped a lot of living nightmares. Because it stopped the brokerage of deals that should never have happened. In his book, Overrun, published on the website for the Center of Immigration Security, Todd Bestman said the DNA testing work quoted Monica Maple, a retired official in charge of the San Antonio office of ICE Homeland Security Investigations. And what did she state? Her reaction, someone who lived in the thick of it, who understands what was happening to these children, horror, 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 horror. And this is what's being allowed by Biden and his administration. There is no conscionable answer that they could ever give me as to why this is a good decision. They can't. It doesn't exist. And it shouldn't exist for you. Write your congressmen, write your senators, let them know how dare they allow this to continue forward. They have to take action to stop. And our legislatures can do that if they so choose. Please write to them today. This is unconscionable what's happening. I had to bring it to your attention. There is no more significant report that you're going to hear today. I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. Please don't forget to subscribe. I probably skipped right over that because I wanted to get this story to you. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.